There is a 1/9 tolerance sheet of aluminum foil sitting inside your kitchen drawer right now that can raise your indoor temperature by a full 15 degrees this winter. No space heater, no furnace upgrade, no gas bill, no electricity consumed whatsoever. Just a thin sheet of metal placed behind your radiator that bounces 97% of all radiated heat directly back into your living room, instead of letting it vanish through your wall. The United States Department of Energy documented this technique in their official residential energy conservation guidelines. Oak Ridge National Laboratory tested this exact principle under controlled conditions and published the thermal results. NASA has been using the identical reflective technology on every single spacecraft launched into orbit for over 60 years. This is not some internet life hack invented by a teenager in a basement. The fundamental physics behind this trick is the same science that keeps astronauts alive in the freezing vacuum of space. The same principle that ancient desert civilizations used to regulate building temperatures for thousands of years. The same reflective thermal engineering that the United States military has deployed in field shelters across every climate zone on Earth. Then, a $280 billion heating industry realized something very dangerous. They realized that a $1 sheet of foil could cut your heating bill by 25 to 40% in a single afternoon. They did not suppress this technique because it failed any scientific test. They did not discourage it because it damaged homes. They buried it because a $1 roll of foil that slashes your heating bill cannot be sold back to you for thousands every winter, and anything that kills recurring monthly revenue must be made invisible, or better yet, made illegal. This is the story of the cheapest home heating method that physics allows, and the massive industry that convinced 34 states to write building codes specifically designed to make sure you would never use it. Travel back with me to 3100 BC, the western desert of ancient Egypt. An Egyptian builder is constructing a grain storage facility near the Nile River Valley. The temperatures outside swing violently, scorching 115-degree days followed by nights that plunge into the low 40s. The grain must stay cool during the day and protected from cold at night. A failed harvest storage means famine. The stakes are life and death. But this builder does not use any mechanical temperature control. He does not burn fuel. He does not circulate water or air. Instead, he constructs the inner walls of the facility using thick mud brick with a smooth, polished limestone facing on the interior surface. That polished limestone does something extraordinary. It reflects radiated heat. During the day, it bounces solar thermal energy away from the stored grain. At night, when the walls slowly release their absorbed daytime heat inward, the reflective surface redirects that warmth deeper into the building, instead of letting it escape through the outer walls. Interior temperatures stayed remarkably stable, between 68 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit year-round inside structures where outside temperatures swung by over 70 degrees in a single day. No electricity, no mechanical systems, just reflective surfaces and the basic physics of thermal radiation that the Egyptians understood wild, right? 5,000 years before we even named it. The principle is devastatingly simple. Heat moves in three ways: conduction, through direct contact; convection, through moving air or fluid; and radiation, through invisible infrared energy waves that travel in straight lines from any warm surface. Your radiator, your space heater, your furnace vent, your place is really blasting out the heat, right? That radiant heat travels in all directions equally, forward into your room, sideways into your furniture, and backward, directly into the wall behind the heat source. That wall absorbs the heat silently, conducts it through the brick or drywall, and delivers it straight outside into the frozen winter air. You're paying to heat your wall. Your wall is paying to heat the sky, and no one in your entire life. Want to keep all that heat from escaping? Just pop something reflective behind it, seriously. The Egyptians figured this out 5,000 years ago with polished stone. Now, move forward to ancient Rome, the 1st century BC. Roman engineers are building the most advanced heating system the world has ever seen. They call it the hypocaust, a raised floor system where hot air from a wood-burning furnace circulates beneath the living space and rises through hollow channels built inside the walls. But the Romans did not simply pump hot air and hope for the best. They lined the interior surfaces of their heated rooms with polished marble and smooth plaster, specifically designed to reflect radiant heat back into the living space. Roman architects understood that reflective interior surfaces dramatically improve heating efficiency. The polished marble walls in Roman villas were not merely decorative luxury, they were functional thermal engineering. A reflective wall bounces radiated heat back toward the occupants. A rough, dark wall absorbs it and wastes it. Roman bathhouses achieved and maintained interior temperatures of 100 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the hottest rooms using this combined approach. Heated air below, reflective surfaces above, maximum thermal retention with minimum fuel consumption. The engineering was so effective that a single furnace burning modest amounts of wood could heat an entire bathhouse complex serving hundreds of citizens simultaneously. For centuries after Rome fell, this knowledge persisted across the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and Central Asia. Persian architects used polished tile surfaces in hammam bathhouses for over 1,000 years. Ottoman engineers refined the reflective thermal principle across their empire. Traditional Korean ondol floor heating systems used smooth stone surfaces to reflect and retain radiant heat for centuries before European colonization brought different building standards. Every civilization that mastered efficient heating independently discovered the same truth. Reflective surfaces keep heat inside. Absorptive surfaces let it escape. And the simplest way to heat a room is not to generate more heat. It is to stop losing the heat you already have. Then the Industrial Revolution arrived, and with it came a radical, profitable idea. What if instead of helping people keep heat inside for nearly free, you sold them more fuel to replace the heat that their walls were wasting every single hour of every single winter day? In 1855, a Russian-born businessman named Franz Sangali invented the cast iron radiator in St. Petersburg. His design spread across Europe and America within decades. By 1900, central heating with radiators had become the standard for urban homes across the industrialized world. But here is the detail that matters. Radiators were always installed against exterior walls, directly against the coldest surface in the room, the exact placement that guarantees maximum heat loss through the building envelope. Why were they put there? Because that is where the pipes ran most conveniently from the basement boiler. Not because it was thermally optimal, because it was cheapest to install. And nobody ever corrected this, because the more heat your wall absorbs and loses to the outside, the more fuel you need to buy to compensate. By the early 1900s, the coal and gas heating industry was generating massive revenue from residential heating fuel. A study by the American Council for an Energy-Efficient Economy estimates that 25 to 35% of all radiant heat produced by a wall-mounted radiator travels backward directly into the exterior wall and is lost to the outside. 1/4 to 1/3 of your entire heating bill pays to warm the bricks behind your radiator, not your living room, not your family, your exterior wall. A single sheet of reflective material placed between that radiator and that wall bounces nearly all of that wasted heat back into the room. The Department of Energy confirmed this. Building science researchers at Oak Ridge National Laboratory confirmed it. Thermal imaging studies have visualized it with stunning clarity. But the heating fuel industry generates over $280 billion in annual global revenue across residential gas, oil, electric heating, and HVAC equipment sales combined. A $1 sheet of aluminum foil that cuts your fuel consumption by 25 to 40% represents a direct and measurable threat to that revenue. You cannot patent aluminum foil. You cannot brand it. You cannot build a subscription model around a sheet of metal that lasts for years. And what you cannot monetize, you must bury. Now stay with me, because the physics behind this one technique is where the story becomes truly undeniable. Every warm object in your home emits infrared radiation. Your body does it. Your coffee mug does it. Your radiator does it constantly. This radiant energy travels at the speed of light in straight lines until it hits a surface. When infrared radiation hits a standard interior wall made of painted drywall, plaster, or brick, approximately 90 to 95% of that energy is absorbed. The wall heats up. That heat conducts through the wall material, and it exits your building into the cold air outside. When that same infrared radiation hits a sheet of aluminum foil, something dramatically different happens. Aluminum reflects approximately 95 to 97% of all incoming infrared radiation. The heat does not get absorbed. It does not conduct through the wall. It bounces directly back into your room. This is not theoretical. This is measured, published physics. NASA understood this principle in the 1950s when they were designing thermal protection for the first spacecraft. The vacuum of space is the most thermally hostile environment human beings have ever entered. Temperatures in direct sunlight reach 250 degrees Fahrenheit. In shadow, they plunge to minus 250 degrees. A spacecraft must maintain internal temperatures around 70 degrees in both conditions. The solution NASA engineers developed is called multi-layer insulation. Thin sheets of aluminized mylar, essentially reflective foil, layered with spacers to create a thermal barrier that reflects radiant heat in both directions, keeping heat in when facing the cold void, reflecting heat out when facing the sun. This is the exact same physics at work when you place aluminum foil behind your radiator. You're creating a reflective barrier that redirects wasted radiant heat back into your living space. The British Energy Saving Trust, a government-backed organization, conducted extensive testing on radiator reflector panels. Their published findings confirmed that reflective panels installed behind radiators on external walls reduce heat loss through those walls by up to 50%. 50% of the heat that was vanishing through your wall recovered by a reflective surface that costs almost nothing. A study published in the journal Energy and Buildings measured the thermal performance of aluminum-based reflective insulation in residential settings. The researchers found that reflective barriers reduced radiant heat transfer by 90 to 97% compared to standard wall surfaces. The authors concluded that reflective insulation represents one of the most cost-effective energy conservation measures available for existing buildings. 90 to 97% heat reflection, published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, available to anyone who searches for it. Now, here is where the math becomes devastating to the industry. The average American household spent $1,080 on heating in the most recent year, tracked by the Energy Information Administration. 25% of that heat radiates backward into exterior walls behind heating units and is completely wasted. That is $270 per year per household, literally heating the bricks behind your radiator. There are approximately 130 million households in America. At $270 in wasted heat per household per year, that represents over $35 billion in annual heating fuel that is consumed entirely to warm exterior walls and accomplish absolutely nothing for the people paying the bill. $35 billion per year in pure waste, recoverable with a material that costs $1 per radiator from any grocery store on the planet. The foil industry will not tell you this because they do not think of their product as a heating technology. The heating industry will not tell you this because $35 billion in annual waste is their revenue. And building codes will not require this because the people who write building codes sit on committees funded by the industries that profit from inefficiency. Now let me explain something even more powerful. Aluminum foil behind a radiator is the simplest application, but reflective thermal barriers have been tested at every scale. The Florida Solar Energy Center tested reflective radiant barriers installed in residential attics across the southern United States. Their research found that reflective barriers in attic spaces reduced cooling costs by 8 to 12% in hot climates. The principle works in both directions. Reflecting heat back into your home in winter, reflecting heat away from your home in summer. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory published extensive research confirming that radiant barriers provide measurable energy savings in both heating and cooling dominated climates. Their data showed reductions in overall energy consumption of 5 to 25%, depending on installation, climate zone, and existing insulation levels. The United States military uses reflective thermal barriers in temporary field shelters deployed across Arctic, desert, and tropical environments. The technology works in every climate on Earth because the physics of thermal radiation does not change based on geography. Heat radiates. Reflective surfaces bounce it back. That law applies at the equator and at the North Pole equally. So if this is published science, confirmed by NASA, DOE, and Oak Ridge National Laboratory, tested by the military, and costs less than a cup of coffee, why is this not standard practice in every home in the world? And why have 34 states created building codes that effectively prevent you from using it? Here's the answer, and it is not complicated. It is just deeply ugly. Building codes across the United States are developed and updated through a process heavily influenced by industry groups. The major code organizations, including the International Code Council, regularly consult with manufacturers, contractors, HVAC trade groups, and energy companies when drafting standards. These standards consistently favor active heating systems, systems that consume fuel, systems that require professional installation, systems that generate ongoing service revenue, systems that need replacement every 10 to 15 years. Passive solutions like reflective barriers, thermal mass walls, and radiant heat redirection are either classified as non-compliant supplementary measures or ignored entirely in residential energy code frameworks. In 34 states, building energy codes mandate minimum insulation R values but do not recognize or credit reflective radiant barriers as a compliant alternative. This means a builder cannot substitute a highly effective reflective system for traditional insulation, even when the reflective system outperforms it in radiant heat retention. A homeowner who installs reflective insulation instead of standard fiberglass bats in a renovation can fail a building inspection, even if the reflective material performs measurably better in that specific application. This is not about safety. Aluminum foil does not burn at normal operating temperatures. It does not release toxic gases. It does not degrade structurally for decades. This is about code frameworks written around the products that dominant industries manufacture and sell. Fiberglass insulation is a $15 billion industry. Spray foam insulation is a $2.5 billion industry. HVAC equipment is a $25 billion industry in America alone. A $1 sheet of aluminum foil from your kitchen represents zero revenue for every single one of these industries. And building codes are the mechanism through which zero revenue solutions are kept out of standard practice. In the United Kingdom, the government-backed energy-saving trust actively recommends reflective radiator panels as a cost-effective energy-saving measure. Their official guidance specifically instructs homeowners to install reflective foil behind radiators on external walls. The British government encourages it. American building codes effectively prohibit crediting it. The science is identical. The physics does not change when you cross the Atlantic Ocean. Only the financial interests writing the rules change. The gas utility industry in America spent over $140 million on lobbying in a recent tract year alone. HVAC manufacturers and contractors spend tens of millions more through trade associations and code development participation. A sheet of aluminum foil has no lobbyist. It has no trade association. It has no marketing budget and no seat at the table where building codes are written. And that is exactly why you're hearing about it from this video instead of from your energy company, your builder, or your government. If you have made it this far, you already understand more about home heating physics than 99% of homeowners paying energy bills right now. Subscribe and share this video with someone who deserves to stop throwing money through their walls every winter. Stay with me now because the most actionable part of this video is next. Now I need to be completely honest with you here. Aluminum foil behind a radiator is not going to eliminate your heating bill entirely. If your home has no insulation in the walls or attic, you're losing heat through multiple pathways that a reflective panel alone cannot address. If your windows are single pane, if your doors have gaps, if your ductwork leaks, those problems need attention too. But here is what foil reflectors absolutely do and do exceptionally well. They recover 25 to 50% of the radiant heat being wasted through the wall directly behind your heating source. They cost almost nothing. They install in minutes. They require zero maintenance. They last for years. And they work immediately from the very first hour they are in place. No other home energy upgrade on the planet delivers this ratio of cost to performance. Nothing comes close. Here is exactly what to do with this knowledge starting today. Method 1. The $1 kitchen foil radiator reflector. Go to your kitchen. Pull out your standard aluminum foil. Heavy duty works best, but regular works fine. Measure the area of a wall directly behind your radiator or baseboard heater. Cut a sheet of foil slightly larger than that area. Tape the foil to the wall behind the heater with the shiny side facing outward toward the room. Ensure it covers the full area behind the heat source from top to bottom. Smooth it flat against the wall. No gaps, no wrinkles. That is it. Total cost, under $1. Total installation time, 5 minutes per radiator. The shiny aluminum surface now reflects approximately 95% of all radiant heat that was previously being absorbed by your wall and lost to the outside. That heat now bounces back into your room. A family in Manchester, England did exactly this in every room of their 3-bedroom terraced house. 7 radiators, all on exterior walls. Total cost, about $4 in foil and tape. Their gas consumption dropped by 18% that winter. They calculated savings of over $190 in a single heating season from $4 in materials. Method 2, the $8 dedicated reflector panel. For a more durable and efficient installation, buy a roll of reflective radiator foil from any hardware store. This is typically a thin foam-backed aluminum sheet designed specifically for this purpose. A standard roll covers 4 to 6 radiators and costs between $6 and $10. Cut panels to fit behind each radiator, slide them into position between the radiator and the wall. The foam layer adds a small additional insulation barrier, while the aluminum surface reflects radiant heat. These panels are more durable than kitchen foil, maintain their reflective properties longer, and add a secondary insulation benefit. A building energy assessor in Edinburgh tested homes before and after installing these panels. Average heat loss through radiator walls dropped by 45%. Annual heating, cost reduction measured between 15 and 22%, depending on the home. Method 3, the full reflective barrier system. For maximum effect, extend the reflective principle beyond just your radiators. Buy a roll of reflective radiant barrier foil from any building supply store. Standard residential grade costs approximately $25 to $40 for 500 square feet. Install it across the inside face of exterior walls behind furniture and along the top of your attic floor with the reflective side facing the heated interior. This creates a continuous thermal mirror around your living space. Radiant heat generated by your body, your heating system, your cooking, your appliances, everything that emits warmth gets reflected back inward instead of radiating through walls and ceilings to the outside. The Florida Solar Energy Center documented that attic radiant barriers alone reduce heating and cooling energy consumption by 5 to 12% in tested homes. Combined with radiator reflectors, weather stripping, and basic draft exclusion, a homeowner can realistically reduce total heating costs by 30 to 45% without replacing a single piece of heating equipment. Total investment for the full approach, roughly $50 to $80. Payback period at average heating costs, less than one single winter. Compare that to a new high-efficiency furnace, $3,000 to $7,000 upfront. Professional installation required, 15-year lifespan, monthly fuel bills continue for life, or a $1 sheet of foil. No installation needed, no professional required. No monthly bill ever. Let me state these numbers one final time so they burn permanently into your memory. A $1 sheet of aluminum foil recovers up to 50% of wasted radiant heat behind every radiator in your home. An $8 roll of reflector panels cuts wall heat loss by 45% across your entire house. A $50 full reflective barrier system reduces total heating costs by 30 to 45% indefinitely. The average American household will spend over $32,000 on home heating across a 30-year mortgage. $35 billion per year in wasted heat radiates through American walls, behind heating units, and accomplishes absolutely nothing for the families paying the bill. The Egyptians solved this with polished limestone 5,000 years ago. The Romans engineered it into an empire. NASA depends on it to keep astronauts alive. The British government officially recommends it to every homeowner. And a $280 billion industry needs you to never place a $1 sheet of foil behind your radiator. This knowledge never disappeared from the planet. It was buried under building codes written by the industries that profit from heat loss, buried under 70 years of advertising that taught 3 generations to buy more fuel instead of wasting less, buried under a system designed from the ground up to ensure that the simplest solutions never reach the people who need them most. The Egyptian builders knew 5,000 years ago. They lined walls with polished reflective stone and stabilized indoor temperatures without burning anything. The Romans knew. They built reflective heated rooms that served an empire of millions using minimal fuel. NASA knew in the 1950s. They wrapped spacecraft in reflective foil and conquered the most thermally hostile environment in existence. The British government knows right now. They tell their citizens to install reflective panels behind every radiator. The Department of Energy published the data. Oak Ridge National Laboratory confirmed the measurements. Peer-reviewed journals documented the physics. And a $280 billion global heating industry has spent decades making absolutely certain that you would never tape a $1 sheet of foil behind your heater. But right here, right now, watching this video, you just learned the exact same principle that protects astronauts in the vacuum of space. And it costs less than a candy bar. The heat is already in your home. You already paid for it. All you had to do was stop it from escaping through the wall. Your great-grandmother knew this. The science confirmed what physics already guaranteed. And the industry spent decades making sure you would never figure it out. But today, sitting right here, you just did.